Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Brilliant Minds? Question mark always. Remember, we are therapists, but we are not going to be your therapists today. I'm your host, of course, Andrea, and this is my other co-host.
Olivia.
Hello, Olivia. I'm excited to talk about this topic today. I do feel like this is a topic that we as therapists probably talk about a lot.
We do and we don't. I think we talk
Yeah,
about it a lot on a very surface level in terms of how we talk about it with clients, but I
totally.
don't think we talk about it on a very deep level for the most part with one another.
Yeah, definitely. I think my hope in talking about this today, and we could do that or do something else, is to talk about this topic, like you said, maybe deeper or beyond what we might say to someone in a consultation. Maybe talk about like what that theory means to us or how we might present that topic or that theory or that approach. Because I think if we say, I use this approach or this theory, people are often like, oh, so that means you do this. And it's like, well, no, let me tell you how I do it. So I,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I'm just going to jump right in and say, like, when you think about this topic of theories and approaches or interventions, like, what comes up for you? Like, what do you think about when we talk about this?
Usually my mind goes to all the things that I don't relate to first, which is kind of funny.
Mm.
I go to hot topic theories that are very trendy and why I think I don't really align with them for whatever reason. Or I think about how most often when I talk about my approach or the theories that I pull from, I'm just talking with clients about it, and they're usually new clients, and how sometimes that can feel so disingenuous, and I really hate that feeling. Or I also think about how I typically, even though I am really in this camp, how I cringe every time some therapist describes themselves as eclectic and their approach. And I'm like, ugh. I don't like that because, and even though technically that is the category I'm in, because I do pull from a lot of different theories, I don't like that initial description because it feels like a cop out answer
Mm-hmm.
to what's your approach and how do you envision the therapeutic process.
Yeah.
So I really don't like when clinicians use the term eclectic.
I guess I think about this topic similarly to you, where I actually go back to school, where in my program, they made us like our final capstone project was to come up with what theory we wanted to be rooted in. And that bothered me so much the entire time because, like, semester one, they were like, start thinking about what approaches you fall in line with the most. And eclectic was literally the only one that fit what I wanted or what I felt was right, except for the fact that we weren't allowed to say eclectic. We weren't allowed to use integrative because of like they felt like that was too broad. And yeah. So it's
Right.
and I have so many hot takes on theories. I know you and I have like surface levelly touched on some of our hot takes. So is that where we want to start? Is hot takes, or do we want to start like surface level and then go in? What do you think?
I love a hot take. Let's just start there. You can't
Let's
just
dive
like
in.
say that you have them and then not immediately go into them. It's like saying, "Hey, I just really need to talk with you." And the person like,
Oh, totally. Yeah. Okay, so what would you say is your like top hot take in regards to theory or intervention?
"CBT is gaslighting."
100%. That's what my answer would have been is CBT is a nothing theory, is a nothing thing.
Yeah. Have you had it where you've had clients? Because I've had this, which is primarily why I'm asking. Have you had it where clients have come to session or wanted to meet with you and been like, "Oh yeah, I have been," or like, "I want to start working on my depression, my anxiety, whatever. And I saw that CBT is the most effective for it. So that's what I'm looking for." Or they'll be like, "Oh, my doctor recommended that I get
Hmm.
CBT for my anxiety or my depression." So
Yeah.
what do you say to a client like that is coming to you and like, "Hey, it's supposed to be really effective and I want to do it"?
Right. Right. I mean, gosh, I don't know if I know off the top of my head what I say to somebody, but that's such a common thing that I hear, especially the doctor one. Like somebody goes to the doctor, right? They take their PHQ-9 or their GAD-7 or whatever. If nobody knows what those are, you haven't gone to the doctor and had your mental health evaluated. But they're basic level like depression anxiety screeners, and doctors are kind of trained where if you score a certain level on those to say you need CBT therapy. And I think I will always like reflect back to them and be like, "Well, tell me what it is that you actually want to change. What's going on with your life?" And that I almost kind of kick the CBT away and I don't really touch it. I'm kind of just like, I'm going to deflect on you a little bit. I'm going to get rid of it. Um, because, yes, I have training in CBT. It is not something I use right away. I feel like it leans too heavily into masking, especially with the neurodivergent approach. It's so behavioral. And I guess I kind of frame it in the sense of like, I want you to be a true human. I don't want you to conform. And I feel like CBT helps people conform. That's a hot take, but
Gaslight and conform. Yeah, I think that's totally true. Do you have any other hot takes?
I think, I mean, a lot of it has to do with that, which is a lot of people hear something about therapy and then they're like, that's going to work for me, right? I have trauma, I must do EMDR, right? I have anxiety, I must do CBT. And I think that theories are bogus. I think that they help us frame things. Think they give us
That's the hot take. Theories are like semi bogus.
yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because like and I think you and I have touched this before where it's like all theories are the fucking same.
Yes, and that's something that if you are a fellow therapist and clinician listening to this and also maybe even like developing your own approach as you enter the field, the more you dive into each theory, the closer and closer together they sound. And if they don't sound close together, put on your critical thinking cap and honestly, like, try again. In the most loving, respectful way I can say that, try again. They are all saying kind of the same thing, but with different words.
100%. 100%. I think we've talked about jargon on here before, and every theory is just a new dictionary of jargon. It's just a reframe of the same thing over and over and over again.
One of my other hot takes, and this could get me a little bit canceled in the field because this is like a really big thing right now.
I just said theories are bogus. So,
Okay, that's fair. But they, again, they a little bit are. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
they all kind of pull from each other. I think somatic therapy, like, I don't.
You're having a somatic experience right now, Olivia.
And to be really honest, I don't know how much of it is just who I am as a person, why somatic stuff just like doesn't make any sense to me. But I see this a lot with people with like, oh, trauma. Let's go do somatic therapy. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, why that therapy?
What is your I'm curious, like, what is your definition of somatic therapy? Because I asked this because I actually had this interaction with someone yesterday, and they were like, somatic therapy, like, didn't fit right, didn't feel good. It wasn't like it was really woo woo. And I was like, tell me what it means, because I've noticed that somatic therapy can be this super weird, like, go touch trees and howl at the moon, versus like something different completely, like a behavioral training type somatic therapy. So I'm curious, like, what specifically is it for you?
When I think of somatic therapy, my first automatic thought is the question, where do you feel that in your body? And I
Okay.
personally have never used that question and would never like to be asked that question.
Mm-hmm.
So again, when I say like somatic therapy just seems particularly like out there and like
Yeah.
not a thing. Again, it's like I don't know how much of that's my perspective and how much of that's, true for other people. I don't know. But specifically somatic therapy is kind of like odd to me. I don't get it. And it's just come up a lot more. We were talking in a previous episode about how the field is very subject to trends. And
Mhm.
I think somatic therapy is becoming a little bit more of a trend. And so there's more focus on it. So I don't know. Maybe I'll change my mind, but it's not
I
looking
mean,
good.
I think it's what I'm almost hearing in this too is that like somatic therapy is kind of a trend, but I also think it's just another way to look at how to process trauma. So again, it's all the same. I think the problem is that number one, not everybody has that brain body connection in the way that somatic therapy needs to have that, or else it is extremely triggering and overwhelming and very like exposure therapy esque, um, which
Um,
isn't safe for everyone, especially if you have chronic health conditions. Your body can betray you. So, somatic experiencing or somatic therapy might not be correct or like might not be the right path. I think as therapists, it is our duty to like figure out what is safe for our clients and then to push them
totally.
from there, right? Like, I will admit, I do use that question, like, where do you feel it in your body? But I think I utilize it probably differently than how maybe people perceive it. And I think I do the same with internal family systems. I don't use internal family systems the same way that they train it necessarily. Kind of use somatic therapy as like a nervous system regulating task rather than a theory. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think I can understand like that train. And that
Yeah.
makes sense to me. You know, it's like as much as we have hated on CBT, I do think there are some things about CBT that are useful. Could I absolutely credit it to CBT the theory at large? I mean, I don't know. I'd really have to like dig at the research, but there are things that are I think are really helpful from different theories that I like. You know, like with CBT, I think the importance of a reframe and being able to reframe things for clients and highlight things and point out strengths, like I think that's actually really, really helpful. You know, the idea of cognitive distortions and like the ways in which your brain has maybe stronger neurological tendencies and to recognize those about your experience. Like, I think that's really great. That's about the extent of CBT I'll use. Right. Or like, for
Yeah.
instance, I like to pull on narrative therapy, but not in how a lot of, I don't think other people use it. You know how you're like, oh yeah, IFS, but like not really IFS.
Right.
I make narrative therapy more practical in the sense that, in my mind, how I've analyzed narrative therapy is it matters the words that you use with yourself and with other people.
Hmm.
And so, in conjunction with this idea of like reframing things and highlighting things, I
Yeah.
use this like idea from narrative therapy of like, hey, like the words that you use and the dialogue that you choose for yourself and for others is actually really important. And those words can really, I think, channel feelings and emotions and thoughts and experiences. So let's be mindful about what words we're using. That's the extent of my narrative therapy like influence. Even though it's not anything more tangible than that, it's
Right.
still technically pulling from that theory.
Yeah. Totally. And maybe we need a new word for eclectic or something. I mean, person centered is probably the next piece to that, where it's like, oh, we are just evaluating what this client needs and kind of going based off of that and then pulling from so many different dictionaries, essentially, or encyclopedias, as I always like to say. Um, but it is like, it is such a challenge for me to sit back and see therapists be like, "Oh, I am an IFS therapist," because I'm like, "But how can you stick to that? Like how can you just
Right.
be a CBT therapist like that?" And maybe that's my neurodivergence a little bit, but like I could not imagine myself sitting with a client and being like, "Let's do cognitive restructuring today." No. What? Who does that?
Not us. I could tell you that for free.
Yeah, yeah. And then like if we go even deeper, you know, the idea of like existential theories or psychoanalysis or like those are just smart people words and jargon for things like trauma processing, experiences, telling stories of our lives.
Yeah, to me, it's essentially just wrestling with more philosophical existential questions like, why are we here? Why does this matter? Like, how do I make
Right.
meaning out of this? Like, and I think those questions could be really valid, but for some people it's like, and I think you and I very much relate in this way, but I kind of equate it to the social worker and me of like, we can't get to the question of like what the meaning of life is if like your anxiety is so crippling you can't get to work.
Hmm.
We
Yeah.
can't start there. Like that theory
Right.
or that approach isn't really going to be effective. It's just going to make everyone frustrated. We have to start at the place where the client is.
Yeah.
I mean, I like the terminology person centered. I like the word integrative. I think that's a fancy-ish way of saying eclectic. I think one of the things that I highlight in the initial process as like the key piece to me, of course, we very much align on this, is just highlighting the importance of the therapeutic relationship. And I
Collaboration.
focus, yeah, like I focus more on the relationship and what to expect out of the relationship and what it should feel like and all of that instead of being like, oh, person centered, because
Right.
again, that can mean so many different things. So I really like try to boil it down to, okay, the therapeutic relationship is primary. Here's why it's primary. Here's what the research shows us about why the relationship, the therapeutic relationship, is primary over any other theory that anyone uses.
Yeah.
And like, this is how we foster that. This is how
Mhm.
we work in that. This is what to expect.
Right.
And then
Yeah.
sometimes for fun, I'll pull on these other things.
Collaboration is kind of at the core of my work, which is, I think I've been using the word collaboration a lot, especially. Uh, I would say that I am definitely a collaborative supervisor, 100%, where I'm like, we're going
Hmm.
to collaborate. I'm not going to tell you what to do first. And I'll step in where I need to step in. I think I take that approach with clients too, which definitely hits on that rapport development, building that relationship and that trust in order to get somewhere. And I think that's probably something that I struggled with in school in particular was like going through theory class. It was just like, all right. Well, I was in a marriage and family track. So I took all these like family theory courses. And every single one, it was like Bowennian family therapy, systems family therapy, uh, whatever all the other ones are. And I was like, these are just all the same, and they're all the same than this other thing, and they're all just about like helping this client get to some end or some means of support or healing. But like what they also then told us was that we kind of needed to sit back and let the client go through it. So there was always this like weird cognitive
So
dissonance
confusing.
for me, which is a jargony word, I know, I'm so sorry. There was this like confusion almost around like there's all these things that you're telling me to do with clients, but yet you're also telling me to just sit back and just like do nothing essentially and not be as engaging. And obviously, like I've been doing this for a long time, so now I've been like, well, no, I'm going to put myself forward and collaborate with these people so much more and help build that relationship rather than try to make them comfortable with like a stone person.
Yeah, it's so interesting to always hear about other people's programs because this is classic for pretty much any social work program I've supervised in, I've heard about, even from my own experience. If that master's program for social work even has a like clinical track or like direct service track, which is like
Right.
sometimes a thing, sometimes it's not. Even if you are in that track or that niche or that specialty, however you want to say it, there's probably one theory class that you're required to take. And it's usually like all of them, which means like you're covering a theory a week. I remember I was direct service in my specialty in my MSW program, and we literally covered a theory every week. There is no possible way to digest anything about any theory in a week. And also, like, you're getting the most superficial layer of every theory. And so by the end of it, you're kind of like, at least for me, I'm like, oh, again, these all kind of sound the same. Like they all kind of run together. It doesn't make any sense. And
Yeah.
so when I graduated, I just had absolutely no idea, like
Hmm.
absolutely no idea what theory I liked or didn't like or what my therapeutic approach was at all. Like
Hmm.
social workers in general, like just don't get that kind of education.
Right.
Like, they get a great
Right.
education, but it's not specific in terms of like,
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, We also went very quickly through those theories. And I think the part two that really got me was like, you're teaching me all these surface level theories and all of these things because we had to go through basic counseling theories, but then we also had to go through children, couples, family theories as well on
Whew.
top of that. Yeah. It, and again, like you said, it's the same thing. It's just going like week by week through all this surface level stuff. But then, like, what do we do with that? Then what? How do you put that into
Right.
practice? You know, we saw our school did like mock sessions and then everybody watched the same mock sessions and it was just teachers doing therapy with other teachers. Essentially, it was so weird, which we didn't find that out until we actually met some of the teachers. It was like, what's happening? I thought this was a therapy session. What's going on? It was so weird. But even in those mock therapy sessions, we were like, what? Like, you're not actually showing me how you're using this theory specifically. And all it seemed is that they're building a relationship and that they're having these conversations. But I continued to feel like there was always something missing, and which I now know is just my personality.
Your sparkle, as they
Yeah.
say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I think, and I think you probably do the same in sessions, is like, I do bring my person to therapy. I think that I am my greatest asset, not gonna lie. Like, I I want to create a space that is safe and comfortable and whatever, and then we'll get to the theory or the intervention or whatever if we even get there.
Yeah. I mean, I to add on to this conversation, like the sparkle, your personality, right? Something I'm known for that I don't think a lot of people do and or give themselves permission to do
Hmm.
is I use my humor a lot as intervention. I can't not.
Yeah.
I'm a funny person. Like, I'm
Yes.
hilarious. And the clients that I work with and have worked with and who we have a good rapport, I will absolutely use humor to like diffuse a situation or reframe things or like highlight things for clients, right? And I think that's so helpful because not only is it my personality, but it makes things human. It makes therapy not feel so intense and serious all the time. And sometimes therapy can feel that way, and
Hmm.
thankfully that's not all of the time.
Yeah.
But a part of that humor, I think too, is self disclosure, which I think a lot of therapists really shy away from as well when
Yeah.
it comes to like their approach and how they show up with clients. And I want to be like an advocate for people to give themselves like some permission to self disclose. And
Hmm.
obviously within reason, like think that's really common sense, but I'm going to say it anyways so people don't misconstrue so I don't get canceled for a second reason. But like I think there is so much to be gained from self-disclosure and humor that I would really encourage people to like think about that.
I agree. I agree 100%. I think that with being human, right? Like, if we look at the idea of attachment, that is part of developing a healthy, safe relationship. We do become an attachment figure for our clients. And I think it is so much easier to create a healthy and secure attachment when you're able to actually connect with someone. And I think we can only do that when we show that we're human. When we show parts of our sparkle or our humor or as a silly t-shirt, like it's bringing our personality can help somebody really relate and to be like, oh, you're weird like me. You're not this doctor figure that's just wearing a white coat or a cardigan in therapy speak. It's we are more than that, and I think that that's been my most powerful connection. Now, every once in a while, I get a client who definitely doesn't want the sparkle, and that's fine. Like, I have
Yeah.
had clients that are like, just come in and get what they need and then leave, but that's that person. And I think you find that out, and that's a different type of relationship, but it's still a relationship.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. There's tons of clients where humor doesn't land the same way or it's just like not as effective or it's not right time, right place, all that. Absolutely. I think the other piece, we've talked about this before in episodes, I think, the idea of the clean slate therapist. This idea that like the
Yeah.
therapist has to be a like blank slate
Right. The
and not
stone
really like
person. Yeah.
Yeah, just like not really emotionally respond as much.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and if you operate in that way or feel that way, I would encourage you as a clinician, just for like a client or two that you've been working with for a while, like let up a little bit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that's so helpful. Like I use all these things together all the time. Like a client will come in and be like, "Oh my gosh, all these things, blah blah blah," blah. And I'll be like, "Well, Jesus, that was just really a free and easy week for you, right?" Like it's like sounds silly, but like you're doing all these things, like you're recognizing like, whoa, like that was a lot, and then like you're making kind of a little bit of a joke about it to highlight that like it actually really wasn't free and easy at all, and I
Yeah.
see that,
Yeah.
and like let's talk about that. But I think a lot of people would be like, oh, like I wouldn't say anything like that to my clients. Like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
just try it. Like, why not?
Yeah. One of the things I do in this kind of realm is, so I suffer from chronic migraines, and one of the things that is really hard for me is being on a screen all day, but I see all my clients telehealth, but I'm really honest about that. And sometimes if I'm feeling like a hangover from a migraine, or if I feel one coming on, and I still feel the energy and the ability to see a client, I won't turn my lights on, or I'll keep things really dim. And they actually really appreciate that. And I
Hmm.
tell them, like, hey, just so you know, like, things might feel a little dark today because I had a migraine earlier today or whatever. And it creates this sense of like normalizing, and like normalizing the fact that we suffer and we struggle. And that's my version of that, right? Is that I will sometimes like fidget during sessions, and that normalizes that we are allowed to have accommodations, that we are allowed to
Hmm.
like find ways of adjusting and not have to actually change. I think so many people come to therapy and be like, I want to change. No, we don't need to change. Like, we don't have to change. We don't have to be something for the world if we can't be, right? Like, I cannot function with a chronic migraine. Like, there are days that I just cannot function. So why should I?
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
if you're autistic and you struggle with things like going to the grocery store, figure out what you need to do, and don't let people judge you about it. And I think that that's where the therapy actually works beyond intervention.
Helping people determine what's reasonable or realistic to change, and what is something that they need to just work on accepting and supporting.
Yeah, and that it's
Yeah.
okay to be human and use your humor. I think I've heard from trainings before, using humor to cover up your trauma or whatever is bad. And it's like, no, it's not. Like, that is a coping mechanism. It is okay. Why do we have comedians, right? Like, comedians are out there spewing their trauma and they are fine. Like,
Yeah. I mean, I think that's such a bogus thing to say,
mhm.
partially because, again, like I use humor all of the time.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody has a darker sense of humor than probably a therapist, if I had to
Mm-hmm.
guess.
Oh, oh my gosh. One of our mutual therapist friends gave me a game called Horrible Therapist. Did you get a chance to play this with her?
Yes, yes,
Oh,
yes, I have.
I is it is so funny, but like kind of dark. And playing Cards Against Humanity with a group of therapists is insane. Number one. But it is dark, and we just have such different senses of humor in a lot of ways.
How many times have you heard this? This is like a tiny bit of a rabbit trail, but it's somewhat related. How many times have you had somebody, like in your personal life, make a comment after you've made a joke, like, "Oh, and like that's the therapist," or like highlighting how you're the therapist, but you're the one making that joke?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
I've had that happen so many times. I'm like, that's exactly why I make the joke, because nobody expects that the therapist is going to like make fun of,
Yeah.
like, I don't know, accessing mental health services, and that like mental health isn't real, right? Like,
Right.
that's why it's so funny, because
Yeah.
like obviously I don't think that.
I, as you know, just started watching Bridgerton, and I, over the weekend, watched the full season of Queen Charlotte with the person I was with this weekend. And partway through one of the episodes, I was like, and we didn't have autism back then. And we just cracked up. And it was kind of that thing where she looked at me and she's like, you are a therapist in your soul, aren't you? I was like, yeah. Yep. We can make jokes like that. Like, I think it takes the pressure off of life. I think it takes the pressure off of feeling the need to talk about theories and to use specific interventions. Um, we could go down a whole rabbit trail about how insurance really wants us to name evidence based practice and da, 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 da. But, like, there is evidence in the fact that humor, self disclosure, transparency, attachment works.
Yeah, it
It
does.
works. Yeah.
Also, now that you brought back attachment, we have to talk about this because
Okay.
I've run across this a few times. Let's also highlight that there is a difference between a theory and an approach,
Yes.
because attachment theory
Hmm.
is like fairly well researched. I think all of us generally understand, and like it all, at least in my mind, it makes sense. Attachment theory, right? Like it's like yeah, like
Right.
supportive, healthy attachments and what happens when you don't have that and da 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 da.
Hmm.
When I see clinicians and sometimes clients, because I have had this happen too, try to change attachment theory into an approach,
Hmm.
that doesn't make sense to me. I've legitimately had either a clinician or a client be like, "Oh, I have this person, or I am this person with a insecure, avoidant,
Right.
anxious, whatever,
Right.
and I like really want to work on it." And I'm like, "Totally." And
And what?
attachment theory is a theory. It's not there's no application really to it other than like
Right.
understanding your behavior. There's
Right.
nothing. Go look up attachment theory and look for like clinical interventions. There is nothing. It is not
No.
an intervention.
No. I mean,
Yeah.
to put it plainly, right? Theories are like the dictionaries, right? They're the words, they're the things that we can use to identify things, basically. They're things that exist. Whereas interventions or approaches are things that we do to improve ourselves, change, understand ourselves, like the actual tasks and things that we do. And there are so many with so many things. And I think too, like this might be an existential conversation, but where we are in society right now with things like trendy verbiage and therapy words going around on the internet is turning theories into these things that we can change or we should change.
Right.
And deep down in our human being bodies, we do not need to change our attachment style necessarily.
Right. Yeah. It's like, well, if you've had unhealthy relationships, negative patterns, poor boundaries, things like that in the past, like, are those things that you can work on and improve? Absolutely. But I wouldn't say that that takes you from an avoidant attachment to a healthy attachment. Like,
Right. Yeah.
yeah, it's just so interesting, like how people take
Yeah.
theories and try to make them approaches when it's like that's just categorically not what that is.
Right. And things like attachment, you are not just an anxiously attached person. You are not just a dismissively attached person. You can ebb and flow through all of those. Throughout any period in your life, throughout
Right.
any relationship, throughout any activity, you can ebb and flow through that. And
Yeah.
it is an outcome, of certain situations. And it's, I think similarly, if we've experienced trauma, we can't get that away. We can't change that. We
Right.
can't say, "Oh, I want to get rid of my trauma." Nobody says that. But instead, we use these like approaches or these things to talk about, well, how can I improve the way that I perceive boundaries or the way that I manage or cope with my trauma responses or acknowledge the trauma responses or the issues that come up with my trauma, right? It's not about getting rid of those things at all. And that's where all these theories and approaches overlap so much.
Right. I like to kind of think about it, you were talking about this like dictionary kind of analogy. I
Mhm.
see it as this idea that there's a painting of your life, your experience, whatever, however you want to say, like, let's just go with your experience. There's a painting of your experience. Each theory is like a different lens that you can wear to look at that experience and in hopes better understand why that experience is getting shaped the way it is, what you are learning about yourself, what works for you, what doesn't work for you in that experience. And then the actual like approach or intervention is how do you want to make edits or like touch ups to this painting using that lens?
Hmm.
And it's not that like different lenses won't get you some of the same results because again, I think in a lot of ways they will because the theories all relate to some extent or another, but it's
Yeah.
just really more a way of like seeing your experience and your life and then figuring out okay, well what do we want to do about it now?
Right. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, theories are bogus in the sense that we do not have to adhere to one. We do not have to
Yes.
stick to one. Same with approaches, right? They are not one and only. It is not black and white, right?
Yeah.
They they are great reference points. They can be great lenses like you said, right? But it's about finding what is actually going to help you understand to get to what you need or to get your needs met.
Yeah.
I mean, there's also so much misunderstanding around those things. Like, IFS is a really great example of something that people misunderstand a lot, where people assume that's this like weird family therapy thing, and it's not. It's this completely different, inside out style perception of our brains and like the way that we think and feel and experience. But it's it like again these things get so spiraled out of control, and we lose track of what the core of therapy and mental health support is, which is support.
And to add on to that idea of not siloing yourself as the clinician to only one theory or approach or way of thinking, to also encourage our clients not to do the same because in
Yes.
this idea of like, oh, I'm an avoidant attachment, it's like okay, but like my god, there has to be more interesting things about you than that.
Yeah. have you
You
ever
know.
had have you ever had like a personal relationship, friend, family, anything, where they came to you and they were like, I was told I should go do EMDR therapy, and you like looked at them like, what about just finding a therapist that you like
Yeah.
constantly, right?
Yeah, the other question I think I get even more often is like pointers for how to find a therapist that they would like.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I had a family member ask me, okay, I'm in the market. I'm not asking you to like find me anyone, but what would you look for? Or like specifically was like, what would be red flags?
Hmm. Yeah.
And, and I think that's helpful, right? And I gave some advice of, making I don't know, just be mindful of like how transparent are they? Like, what is the quality of their picture, right? Like first impressions really do matter. If they've only
Yeah.
taken a selfie for their picture,
Mhm.
they're not quite invested in what they're doing. So, like,
Correct.
try again, like transparency in pricing or
Hmm.
their niche or, like their
Yeah.
general approach or what they pull on. Like, that they do
Yeah.
consults, right? Like,
Yeah.
so I think there are things to be mindful of when you look for things like that. But that's the question I get the most is like, where do I even start?
Yeah. And to also know that, like, if you don't vibe, if something doesn't work, you do not ever have to stay with that therapist. You
Yeah.
can leave. You can fire your therapist. You can not show up. Like, you can say, like, oh, I don't think this is going to work for me if you've done a consult, right? Like, you might be told by a doctor, I think you need to go do CBT, and then you go meet with a CBT therapist, and you're like, I don't know if this is for me. Then don't sit there and push yourself through just because your doctor said so or this therapist says that you need to do CBT. What the hell?
Yeah. Because I'm sure you've had it where clients have been like, yeah, like I don't think it's a good fit, or like I'm looking for something else. And anytime I've had that happen, I'm like, absolutely, like, yes, cool.
Love this.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, like I I don't think there's been a time where I've really taken it personally. Like it's just part of the job and it's important. It's like if you know that,
Hmm.
awesome. Like
Yeah.
totally. like, great. Let me know if you need any support in finding anyone or like what that referral process might look like. But like, we're good, like
100%.
peace
Yeah.
be to you and your journey.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, if you are someone who is not a therapist and you are looking for someone, look at who you feel connected to first, right?
Yeah.
Look and see, do they work with you? Like, do they work with your people, your population, obviously, but like, do you have a vibe? Their theory, their intervention, their style, that shouldn't come first,
Yeah. And
right?
it really doesn't, right? Like at the end of the day, it really doesn't.
No. And you might end up working with someone and you're like, oh, I'm so excited to do IFS with them. And then you end up doing something completely different. So,
Yep.
like, I know that we didn't necessarily get into theories or interventions or approaches, but I think that's who we are, right? Like, you and I aren't people who are going to sit there and be jargony and talk about Bohemian family therapy and archetypes of what is that one? Carl Jung. Like, that's not, no. See, I even had to like really yank that out of the back of my brain to like get that going.
I'd rather have a root canal than see somebody that did psychoanalysis. And for some people, they really connect with that theory and that approach. Absolutely not for me. Can't
Totally.
do it.
Totally. We don't want to sit here and be like canceling all of y'all who like that type of stuff. That's not our style. That's
And also,
not
too,
our
like,
vibe.
we know clinicians that have that as an
Yes,
approach and we adore them. So it's like
exactly.
there's
Yeah.
totally a place for it, and I would still rather have a root canal.
100%. 100%. So I was going to say the same thing. We know therapists that do that and we have such great conversations with them, right? So it's not to say that
Oh,
they don't
yeah.
have something to offer. They do. That's just not who Olivia and I are, you guys.
I'm so glad we know that about ourselves, right?
Oh yeah. Like I mean, I don't know how long it took you to get to this point of like feeling confident in like who you are as a therapist, but I know it didn't take me super long. I'm gonna be honest. I think internship was definitely
Humble
very
brag.
rocky. Oh, completely. I think internship was rocky. It was because, you're still in school, they're making me pick, what theory do you want to be rooted in? Like practice one theory over and over again or one intervention over and over again. I mean, and that was hard because it was being drilled into me, but this as soon as I started like being given the opportunity to do what I wanted to do and not being told I had to do something specific, it came so naturally where it was like, okay, yeah, this is going to be me. And I was pretty set on not adhering to what I thought a therapist should be. I practiced and I practiced to try to be what I thought I would want as a therapist.
I think it took me a little bit long for a variety of reasons. Again, my master's program didn't really cover theory very well.
Mm-hmm.
My internship that I had, theory just really wasn't applicable because it was more case management. And then my first few years in the field, I was working in the nonprofit world. And again, theory really wasn't applicable, approach really wasn't applicable in the sense that it is now in my role. Like, obviously every interaction with the client is therapeutic and can be therapeutic, but it wasn't a very clinical role. So then when I transitioned to a more clinical role, that first year was really, really rocky for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I really struggled because I struggled with this idea of what do I see other therapists doing and what is like my approach and what actually connects for me. And so there was a lot of internal battling at that point in time for me in that first year. And I think once I got over that first hump and was able to actually explore with clients what on earth I was doing or not doing, then I hit a really good groove, and I've been comfortable with that since, but it took me a while.
That makes sense. Yeah.
That first year in the therapist role was really tough for me.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
probably equivalent-ish or parallel to my internship experience where I was doing therapy.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like that, trying to figure out what do I do, right?
Yeah, and I felt so behind because that year that I was in a more clinical role, that was like the last year of my licensing process. And for me, it was about
Ah,
like 3.5 years ish that it took me. And so I kind of felt a little bit like a fool. I was like, I'm like almost fully licensed and full fledged and supposed to be like doing all the things. And I
Yeah.
can barely figure out what to recommend to clients who are coming to me for answers, and I just don't.
Well,
I
you
don't have
know,
any, you know?
your supervisor support wasn't probably all that great at that point, right? Am I on the
Correct.
right timeline? Okay.
Yep. Yeah, I was also pregnant.
Yeah, that's right. You were growing a
There,
whole other human.
and it was the first year of the pandemic, so
Oh shit, yeah, that's right. Wow.
yeah, it was a big year. I think for everyone. First
Yeah.
year of pandemic, last year of licensure, got my full license, had a kid. Here we are.
But looking back, I don't think we met. I think we met in 2021, right?
Correct.
Beginning of something beautiful, you guys.
Yeah, I think it was like summer 2021. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So, and look at us now.
I know.
Five, five-ish years later, almost 5 years.
Almost 2021 to,
Oh,
oh
four.
yeah, coming up on 5.
Yeah,
Wow, it seems like way longer than that. Jesus,
I know. My
time is
goodness.
weird.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, do you have any rabbit trails or random thoughts today?
well, I don't know if I would say a rabbit trail or random thought, but just to keep everyone updated, we have decided to split up our podcast a little bit structure wise. We love our rabbit trails, and obviously, because we think we're hilarious and we have all the sparkle to add to your guys' lives, we decided to split up our podcast a little bit. So, we're going to have episodes that are strictly field and topic related. And then we're also going to do, I think, kind of more mini episodes, and they just be rabbit trail central and all of the most random things we can bring and talk about. So be looking for those upcoming, but really like no rabbit trails today, at least that are topic related.
Yeah. And I mean, there will always still be rabbit trails. We'll always probably end on a little silly, positive note instead of just being like, theories are bogus. Bye. We're going to keep it spicy up in her. In addition to that, we are looking at scheduling guests, which is super exciting.
Super fun.
So if you are someone that we know or maybe we don't know that have something to offer to the field of mental health, you do not have to be specifically a therapist. We would love to have a conversation with you and see what your thoughts are on some of the things that we've already talked about, some of the things that we might talk about in the future. So leave us a comment, send us an email, whatever you want to do to communicate with us. We would love to chat.
Yeah, we love meeting new people, getting to know people, building community. Like, that's totally our jam. And if you know us, you already know that to be true. So if you don't know us, you should.
100%. Amazing.
All right, y'all.
Okay.
See you guys in the next episode.
Bye.
Bye. This podcast is for entertainment, informational, and educational purposes only. Although the hosts are licensed therapists, this podcast is not a substitute for professional mental health services. Listening to this podcast does not create a therapist-client relationship.
If you are experiencing mental health concerns, please seek help from a qualified mental health professional in your area. If you are in crisis, call or text a suicide prevention line in your country immediately. In the U.S., you can call or text 988 or use online chat at 988lifeline.org.